You didn't think I would officially start this reading series with something typical, right? Most maybe would have assumed that I would start with another of my own writings, and there are plenty of them. And I had mentioned the possibility and the probability and the eventuality of reading authors such as Brian Evenson or Stephen Millhauser or Paul Auster or some Japanese authors, etc., etc. But because, I don't do things the way that most people tend to do them, I decided to read David Bowie's Diary of Nathan Adler, or it's The Diary of Nathan Adler, or The Art Ritual Murder of Baby Grace Blue, and the subtitle after the colon is A Nonlinear Gothic Drama Hypercycle. Let me say a few words about this. This piece was originally published in, I don't remember exactly, but it was published in a journal before it was published inside the liner notes, if you will, of the One Outside album in 1995. And that was where I first saw it. And it's a very strange piece. And this subtitle saying that it's non-linear is important. And I think, David Bowie was influenced by other non-linear texts or films. And actually, it's said that the whole concept for Outside, which was preceded by the Leon Sessions, was influenced by his having appeared in the David Lynch Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me film. And so that has some kind of non-linear aspects. It's a kind of postmodern thing, Twin Peaks and David Lynch, right? The soundtrack was produced by Trent Reznor, Bowie's friend and collaborator. And actually, The Perfect Drug was on the soundtrack. And no, that was Lost Highway. What am I talking about? See, now I'm really mixing things up. Well, if this is non-linear, I can mix things up like that. That was Lost Highway, and I'm Deranged was opening and closing on that soundtrack. That's why I said that. But Bowie he had a bit role in the Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me film. He appears and kind of disappears very quickly. His part is much shorter lived than in The Hunger, where he gets old and dies in the first part of the movie. But so this was a piece that he wrote and published, and then Bowie and co, Brian Eno and so on. I've talked about One Outside this page before. I won't go into many details about that, but they recorded these kind of improvisational sessions. Bowie created these characters, and one of the characters, the kind of main character who drives the plot forward, is Nathan Adler. He is a detective who is searching to find who killed Baby Grace, or Baby Grace Blue, and strung up her body parts to use as art, an art crime incorporated kind of thing. This story for me connects with other novels by authors such as Paul Auster. In fact, the New York trilogy, especially City of Glass, has a bit of this not non-linear, but very postmodern fractured feel to it. Alain Robbe-Grier's The Erasers, Les Gommes in French, and Jalousie, the blinds / jealousy, which is this man looking at someone through the blinds and, maybe spying on them. And actually, going back to Paul Auster, Ghosts, the second part of the New York trilogy, is also someone looking through the window and looking at someone else. This is not quite that, but this kind of detective observing or trying to get to the bottom of a murder, a case, and not succeeding, or if he does indeed succeed, it's not given in the text. It's not like you pick up the Sherlock Holmes novel and he says elementary dear Watson, and at the end all is revealed and everything's neatly finished and that's it. And actually this drove a lot of people, especially because, the people listening to outside were the David Bowie fans, right? Fans of music, perhaps fans of some of his more pop music as well. And you know, this is post Let's Dance, post 80s, post Tin Machine, which people mostly didn't like. And it confused a lot of people. Not only this story that was included in the booklet, I had the CD, and it had this thick booklet with these weird photos, and I can actually post some of them here when I edit the characters that he plays. Nathan Adler, the detective, baby Grace Blue, who's murdered, this young girl, and 14 years old, which I'll read this, where it mentions this in the first paragraph. Leon Blanc, who's accused of the murder, he's on trial and goes to jail in Oxfordtown, New Jersey, this fictional place. Ramona A. Stone, a futurist, so-called, and a half, maybe robotic or, you know, cyborgian, I guess, half man, half woman kind of evil character, perhaps, who's kind of manipulating Leon, who is her ex-boyfriend, and maybe that's why he's put in jail. But we don't get those ends tied up either in this text or in the storyline to the concept album, and that drove a lot of people crazy. Now, I don't want to keep talking about the music part, because actually what I'm focusing on in this reading series, right, and this is why I say this is a strange choice, which is precisely why I chose it. It's a text. It's a story, but it's non-linear, right? So it's open-ended, and it flits around, you know, the way that a lot of postmodern texts do. And we have these sections with timestamps, date stamps, and place stamps, and we have these little snapshots of things from the diary of Nathan Adler, but nothing is tied up in the end. And it kind of ends with a ... to be continued kind of feeling, which it never was, which makes it even more perfectly nonlinear and messy. So that's why I chose it. It's not that long either, and I've posted a lot of things, and actually the Beau Jardin is longer than this, I think. My novella from published in 2010 that I read takes about an hour, and I think this will not hopefully, but I don't think it will take an hour to read this. Shall we get started with the Diary of Nathan Adler from 1995? Anyway, that's when it was published in the outside booklet. It was precisely 5:47 a.m. on the morning of Friday, the 31st of December, 1999, that a dark, spirited pluralist began the dissection of 14-year-old baby Grace Blue. The arms of the victim were pin-cushioned with 16 hypodermic needles, pumping in 4 major preservatives, coloring agents, memory information, transport fluids, and some kind of green stuff. From the last and 17th, all blood and liquid was extracted. The stomach area was carefully flapped open and the intestines removed, disentangled and reknitted, as it were, into a small net or web, and hung between the pillars of the murder location, the grand damp doorway of Oxfordtown Museum of Modern Parts, New Jersey. The limbs of baby were then severed from the torso. Each limb was implanted with a small, highly sophisticated binary code translator, which in turn was connected to small speakers attached to far ends of each limb. The self-contained mini amplifiers were then activated, amplifying the decoded memory info transport substances, revealing themselves as little clue haikus, small verses detailing memories of other brutal acts, well documented by the rhomboids. The limbs and their components were then hung upon the splayed web, slung like prey of some unimaginable creature. The torso, by means of its bottommost orifice, had been placed on a small support fastened to a marble base. It was shown to warring degrees of success depending upon where one stood from behind the web, but in front of the museum door itself, acting as both signifier and guardian to the act. It was definitely murder, but was it art? All this was to be the lead up to the most provocative event in the whole sequence of serial events that had started around November of that same year, plunging me into the most portentous chaos abyss that a quiet lone hacker like myself could comprehend. My name is Nathan Adler, or Detective Professor Adler in my circuit. I'm attached to the Division of Art Crime Incorporated, the recently instigated corporation funded by an endowment from the Arts Protectorate of London, it being felt that the investigation of art crimes was in itself inseparable from other forms of expression and therefore worthy of support from this significant body. Nicholas Sirota himself had deemed us, the small fry of the division, worthy of an exhibit at last year's Biennale in Venice, 3 rooms of evidence and comparative study work which conclusively proved that the cow in Marc Tanzi's The Innocent By test could not differentiate between Paulus Potter's The Young Bull of 1647, exactly 300 years before I was born incidentally, and one of Monet's grain stack paintings of the 1890s. The traditional art press deemed this extrapolation, quote, bullshit, and removed itself to study the more formal ideas contained in Damien Hirst's Sheep in a Box. Art's a farmyard. It's my job to pick through the manure heap looking for peppercorns. Friday, December 31st, 1999, 10:15 a.m. As in any crime, my first position is to pursue the motive gag. The recent spate through 98, 99 of concept muggings pretty much had me pulling breath for an art murder. It was a crime whose time was now. The precedents were all there. It had probably its beginnings in the 1970s with the Viennese castrationists and the blood rituals of Nietzsche. Public revulsion put the lid on that episode, but you can't keep a good one down. Spurred on by Chris Burden's having himself shot by his collaborator in a gallery, Chris Burden is Joe the Lion, by the way, tied up in a bag, thrown on a highway, and then crucified upon the top of a Volkswagen. Stories circulated through the nasty neon of New York night that a young Korean artist was the self-declared patient of wee-hour surgery in cut-and-run operations at not-so-secret locations in the city. You can find lots of references in here to all sorts of things. If you found out about it, you could go and watch this guy having bits and pieces removed under anesthetic. A finger joint one night, a limb another. By the dawning of the 80s, rumor had it that he was down to a torso and one arm. And this sounds like a Brian Evanson story. He'd asked to be left in a cave in the Catskills, fed every so often by his acolytes. He didn't do much after that. I guess he, read a lot. Maybe wrote a whole bunch. I suppose you can never tell what an artist will do once he's peaked. Round this same time, Bowie the singer remarked on a couple of goons who frequented the Berlin bars wearing a full surgery regalia, caps, aprons, rubber gloves, and masks. The cutting edge. And then came Damien Hirst with the shark cow sheep thing. No humans, palatable ritual for the worldwide public. The acceptable face of gore. Meanwhile, in the US, 1994, I was in town on the night of Athy Sacrifactions. I'm reading this from the web, and there may be some misspelled bits in here, actually. CD booklet text is a bit too small. Thursday, October 27, 1994, 122 East Village, Manhattan. Ron Athey, performance artist not for the squeamish, former heroin addict, HIV positive, pushes what looks like a knitting needle repeatedly into his forehead. A crown of blood must hurt like hell, stream red, dribble, dribble, no screams. Face moves in pain. Carried up stage and scrubbed down in his own blood, the water, now dresses in nice suit and tie, now in black t-shirt and jeans, carving with a disposable scalpel patterns into the back of Darrell Carlton, a black man. Bloody blotted paper towels then hung on a washing line suspended over the heads of the audience, blood prints from life. An extremely limited edition. When it was first performed back in March, 4 scenes in a harsh life, exploited controversy, shrapnel throughout the National Endowment for the Arts. We have taken every precaution with our disposal systems, an Athey spokesperson said. The towels containing the blood are immediately deposited in hazardous waste bags. Each evening, the material will be driven to a hospital for final disposal. Athey says he is dealing with issues of self-loathing, suffering, healing, and redemption. Friday, December 31st, 1999, 10:30 a.m., Museum of Modern Parts. I'm drinking up the Oxford Town, New Jersey fume. Salty and acid. Maybe I can get a handle on this thing back in Soho at the Bureau. It used to be Rothko's studio, now the playground for all us art crime folk, AC, or the Daubers, as we're dubbed. Rothko himself, in a dark, deep drunk one night, carefully removed his clothes, folded them up neatly, placing them upon a chair, lay upon the floor in a crucified position, and after several attempts, found the soft blue pump of wrists and bye-bye, checked out. He'd held the razor blades between wads of tissue paper so he wouldn't cut his fingers. Deep thinker, always was. And as Bowie said in the Leon sessions, life needn't step on baby fingers. 11 a.m., Dauber, HQ, Soho. The only names the data bank can associate with Baby Grace are Leon Blanc, Ramona A. Stone, and the old guy, Algeria Touchstreak. The rundowns are brief but not to the point. Ramona A. Stone, female, Caucasian, mid-40s. Assertive maintenance interest, drug dealer, and tyrannical futurist. No convictions. Contacts, Leon Blanc, Baby Grace Blue, Algeria Touchstreak. Next, Leon Blanc, male, mixed race, 22 years. Outsider, 3 convictions for petty theft, appropriation, and plagiaries without license. Sounds like Banksy or something. Contacts, Baby Grace Blue, Algeria Touchstreak. Algeria Touchstreak, number 3, male, Caucasian, 78 years. Owner of small establishment on Rail Yard, Oxford Town, New Jersey. Deals in art, drugs, and DNA prints. Fence for all apparitions of any medium. Harmless, lonely. Small cog, no wheels. Not much to go on, but R.A. Stone, Ramona. Weighs heavy on my memory. No problem, it'll come back. Best thing to do now is feed all relevant pieces into the Mac verbicizer. The meta-random program that restrings real-life facts as improbable virtual fact. I may get a lead or two from that. A few years before ChatGPT. 11:15 a.m. Jesus Who. I hate typing. Anyhow, we've got some real interesting solvents from Mac Random. How about this? Herbicizer download. First block. No convictions of assertive saints believed Caucasian. Way out tyrannical evoked. No images. Described Christian saints. Questions. No female described. Christian tyrannical. Questions. R.A. Stone. Christian machine. Believed. No work. Is Caucasian assertive saints assertive? Believe female convictions. Martyrs. And tyrannical are evoked. female described the fabric machine, slashing way out saints and martyrs and thrown downstairs. Now the swirl begins. Now the image stack backs up and takes center stage. Ramona, a stone. I remember this thickness, this treacly liquid thought. But wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. June 15th, 1977, Kreuzberg, Berlin. It's 2 a.m. I can't sleep for the screaming of some poor ostracized Turkish immigrant, screaming his guts out from over the street. His hawking shriek sounds semi-stifled, like he's got a pillow over his mouth. But the desperation comes through the spongy rubber like a knife. It cuts the breeze, and it bangs my eardrums. I take a walk past the fabric machine. Turn left onto a street with no name. The Caucasian Suicide Center, naked and grimy, silhouetted by fungus yellow street lamps, female, slashing way out saints for $1 a time, thrown downstairs if you can't take any more. Pure joy of retreat into death. Led by the shepherdess. Anti-mixed race posters pasted upon their altar of pop death icons, party people. A zero with no name looks dull-eyed to Miss Stone, the drone that says in the future everything was up to itself. Yes, I remember Ramona. Oh, Ramona. She set herself up as the no-future priestess of the Caucasian Suicide Temple, vomiting out her doctrine of death as eternal party into the empty vessels of Berlin youth. The top floor rooms were the gateways to giving up to the Holy Ghost. Woo! She must have overseen more than 30 or 40 checkouts before the local squad twigged what was going down. This isn't Let's Dance, folks. Are you enjoying it? October 28th, 1994. It's 1 year before Outside was released. New Yorker magazine. Maybe this was published in the New Yorker. Advanced copy celebrating fashion. It's a first of its kind since Tina Brown took over as editor. One look is all it took. It took the look and wrote a new book on what sophistoplites, is this correct? Sophistoplites would take and bake. Bowie was a very talented writer. His prose is very good. Guy Bourdin featured heavily in this new edition. Since the advent of AIDS and the new morality, and of course his death, his dark, sexy, fatal style had fallen out of vogue. An uncompromising photographer, he had found a twisty avenue through desire and death, a white female leg sticking gloomily out of a bath of black liquid enamel. Two glued-up babes covered in tiny pearls. The glue prevented their skins from breathing, and they passed out. Oh, it would be beautiful, he is to have said, to photograph them dead in bed. He was a French guy. He had no Man Ray, loved Lewis Carroll. His first gig was doing hats for Vogue. He placed dead flies or bees on the faces of the models, or female headwears that crushed between three skin calves, heads, tongues lolling. Well, it was the 50s. That was it. It was. The tight collar, 50s seen through, unspeakable hostility. He wanted, but he couldn't paint. So he threw globs of revengeful hatred at his mobile subjects. This is Grape Juice. And I'm David Bowie, your host, on this Friday night. Friday, December 31st, 1999, 11:30 a.m. After surgery and investment in a bulletproof mask, Ramona turned up in London, Canada, as owner of a string of body parts jewelry stores. Lamb penis necklaces, goat scrotum purses, nipple earrings, that sort of thing. The word on the street, however, suggested that it was not in the best of interests to become one of her clients, as occasionally a customer would step into her shop and not come out again. The whistle blew after a much-loved and highly respected celebrity, known for being known, failed to show for a gallery hanging of her mirrors. Other celebrities, equally known for being known, some only to each other, fame puts you there where things are hollow, thought it was the most profound exhibit in years and could not take their eyes off the works. All the pieces sold within an hour, many for record prices. When the critic for Date magazine asked for an interview with the celebrity artist, the gallery owner recalled that he hadn't seen her since earlier that day. She'd mentioned that she would be going shopping for a diamond-encrusted umbilical cord as a celebratory thing to announce her pregnancy. She would be back in an hour. Just a quick stop at the Gallstone Ramona's shop, apparently. 1986, that pregnancy would have produced a being that would be around 14 years of age. She was 14 years of age. But I have not been to Oxford town. I was just born in Morristown, or somewhere around that area. A little New Jersey boy. That's it. It's the last line reads that the child would be 14 years of age if it was still alive. And it ends cryptically with "to be continued ... question mark." And in fact, not only the story, the fiction, the writing was never continued, but the planned trilogy of triptych, if you will, of albums with Brian Eno, and supposedly he was going to get people like Tricky, who had been prior, in Massive Attack, and Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails to collaborate with him and Eno and do it like with the computer rather than going into the studio with the band again, but it never happened. And unfortunately, Mr. Bowie, Mr. Jones, died of liver cancer in 2016, and though he has become in some ways even more famous today than he was when he was living, certainly the later years, and then, from post Let's Dance, say, or post 80s onward, I would say his fame is bigger now as he's sort of ascended into the stars, become a true star man or a space boy, a legend. But outside, and this album, this period, the Leon sessions, have sadly been more or less, or mostly, let's say, overlooked, both by fans, critics, and everyone. And the Leon sessions remain unpublished. And to be continued, ... question mark, and it's kind of an interesting thing that it sort of trails off into eternity, the void. And so was Bowie's legacy. And thank you. That's my reading for tonight of David Bowie's The Nathan Adler Diaries, and I wish he had written a bit more. It's kind of short, and it does leave us wanting more. And I think if we read this slowly and carefully, we meaning those of us who are interested in the saga of Outside, or Bowie's sort of more avant side as a storyteller, and an artiste, with like Ramona A. Stone calls herself an artiste. I think the more we see his influences here. And of course he's the Museum of Modern Parts, and he's got these kind of black humor bits, and he's kind of, the whole thing about the artwork being so stuffy and silly and ridiculous, combined with his interest in this whole sort of obsession over body art, tattooing, piercing, Damien Hirst's cutting parts of animals and putting them in glass boxes and displaying them as artwork. And is this art or is this not art? right? So the concept was, well, what if we we have a murder victim, a girl who is murdered precisely for her body, but not in a sexual way necessarily, but the body parts, the Museum of Body Parts, Modern Parts, I think it's called, and is this art. And the Minotaur is not mentioned in this text, but the Minotaur is a character in the saga, or in the on the album. He is one of the characters listed. The only characters listed here, we have Ramona A. Stone, we have Baby Grace Blue, and we have Algeria Touchreek, and Leon Blanc, and Nathan Adler. Where's the Minotaur? The Minotaur, to use the British pronunciation, is the dark art force that whoever murdered Baby Grace Blue, whether it was Leon, which it seems like it wasn't, that he was sort of, taking the heat for something he didn't do because he was sort of a shady character, and I think Ramona maybe seems to have been Uragita, like she was, betrayed him or something, or whether it was Ramona Eastone or whether it was Nathan Adler. It seems that it wouldn't be Algeria Touchreek, but then, in those murder mystery novels where the character least likely to do something is the one who does it. But it seems not him, but this lonely old man who just wants to have a friend. It's interesting. But the Minotaur could be Nathan Adler, could be any of us, the artist. And Bowie perhaps was, in a way, murdering, or he was killing his own chances for commercial success with this album. Let me interpret it this way. And he was dissecting, it was getting bloody and messy, and but actually he didn't see it through. Anyway, he went and did Earthling the next year, which was more of a pop album, and then he did Hours, which was more of a looking back to his early days, and then after a long break, he came back with Heathen and almost a pop rock, a rock album, Reality, until his heart attack, and the rest is history. 10 years pass the next day in Black Star, when he discovered he had cancer and was dying. So this wasn't meant to be a music talk, but in fact this bridges both my interests in Bowie and music and the reading series, which from the next time will not be this. I won't be talking about music per se, but like I say, I wanted to do something a bit igai. I wanted to do something no one would expect for this reading series, to kick it off after the Beaujardin revival video that I posted, and that earlier video of me, I look like a teenager or something, reading at Brown University my fiction, my prose poem, The Skeletal Bus. Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend, and be careful where you buy your umbilical cords and nipple earrings, because maybe there's a Ramona A. Stone lurking behind the scenes at those places, so watch out. Till the next, the music is outside. It's happening outside. It's happening now.